welcome to the Transfer Exchange Show. We are live. And as you can see, we're joined by a special guest tonight. It's Holly Percival, junior editor of The Athletic. How you doing, Holly?
I'm good, thank you. How are you guys?
I'm good.
Yep,
Good. And of course, I'm joined by my co-host, Steve K. How you doing, Steve?
I'm good, Kieran. Yep, looking forward to hearing from Holly.
And there is plenty to go through. I mean, Holly, I was doing a little bit of reading, doing a bit of my research, as I always do. And I am so impressed with what I've seen. I think in the space of 6 years, you've done a ridiculous amount. The amount that most people would do in a lifetime, I've seen you do so far. Very impressive.
Thank you. Yeah, it's been a busy few years.
All right. So we're gonna get onto that. We're gonna quiz you on a few things, dig deep into some of the interviews you've done, which is I've got a lot of questions on that, and I'm sure Steve has. We obviously not going to keep you here all night, but we do need to sort of especially dig into the one Pablo and Gal interview and the Gareth Southgate one, especially for me. All right, let's get started then. As I said, in a short space of time, you've done a lot. One of the things that you started on was you was the team liaison officer for Brazil in 2015. Was that in the World Cup for the cerebral palsy team? That must have been a huge achievement for you.
Yeah, it was a very weird moment to be accepted onto that. They only picked 16 people out of, I think, 250 applicants to look after a team within the competition. And I was only 17 at the time, and I just have always had a love for kind of the smaller areas of football, so grassroots and disability, and looking after Brazil was one of the craziest experiences. They didn't speak much English, but I managed to teach them how to chant Aston Villa. So they left with bronze medals and an Aston Villa chant. So I think that's a real win in both people's books.
What have you done? You've got to sing in Aston Villa. Did you learn much Portuguese yourself to adapt out there, or just a few words?
Yeah, I learned a few words. It was in England, so all of the staff was English, and kind of the main language of the tournament was English, luckily. But in terms of communicating with them, I was with them for 15, 16 hours a day, and literally just at their beck and call. So I'd managed to learn some words. I could not tell you anything now, but at the time, by then, it was okay. But I can't remember anything.
You must have grown quite a bond with them in that time as well.
Yeah, massively. They made me feel so at home. Like I said, I was eating breakfast, lunch, and dinner with them, taking them to training sessions. Probably one of my favourite things was walking them out for the opening ceremony, and when they went to collect their medals in the closing ceremony as well. Yeah, so it was a very surreal moment, and St George's Park hosted, and obviously St George's Park is a great facility to, be at a place for 3 weeks. It was very enclosed. It was like there wasn't an outside world. So
and it's a bit like that at St George's Park as well. It's kind of away from everything, isn't it?
Yeah, I genuinely forgot how to interact with people outside of football because we didn't see anyone for 3 weeks, and it was really nice. My family came to see the final, and I obviously got to see them in the stands briefly, but I hadn't seen them in 3 weeks, so I just didn't know how to function.
That's crazy. But then after that, you went on to you was working for the women's team in the 2017 Women's World Cup. So what was you doing at that one? Yeah,
so as part of a uni program, a group of 14 of us from university went to Holland to cover the Women's Euros, and we were there for 16 days or something like that, and we covered all the group games between us around Holland, and it was just amazing. We just covered it for a bunch of different publications and freelanced, and I did vlogs. Quite embarrassingly, it always feels quite weird to do vlogs. I know that people can feel one of two ways about them, but I thoroughly enjoyed myself and learnt so much and got to interview an endless list of footballers during those 2 weeks.
So you was just covering all of the World Cup ones, was you?
Yeah, all of the Euros games. We kind of split them up between us. I think I did 2 or 3 England games as well, which was really nice. And like I said, interviewed a ton of players, French players, English players, Dutch players as well. So they were FIFA and UEFA were massively accommodating to us, which is really nice because a lot of the times as students you don't really get that kind of opportunity. So to get it after 1 year of university, I felt very lucky and got to go stay in Holland for a couple of weeks, which you really can't complain at.
No, you can't. How did you manage to get that one then? Was that just through uni?
Yeah. So my lecturer, Peter Lansley, he's a great guy. He just managed to kind of build up a really good relationship with UEFA, and they decided to let a small group of us go out on accreditation. And then we've kind of been doing that for various tournaments through the university for quite a few years now.
That's cool. That's cool. And then the 2019 with France in the World Cup.
Yeah,
was that doing the same thing. So you'd already had that practice before, and you was like, you hit the ground running with that one.
Yeah. There's a lot more experience in the group this time round, and obviously the Women's World Cup is a bigger stage, and it's the biggest women's tournament to date. So there was a lot of kind of pressure to make sure the content we were producing was to a high level. Yeah. And it was also going out to even more publications than ever before. We did a lot of stuff for Reach during the 2.5 weeks we were out there. I was freelancing for Haters TV and sending them daily vlogs on the World Cup and kind of behind the scenes footage. So on a personal note, I think it went pretty well. I mean, I barely slept because I was editing vlogs till the early hours of the morning to turn them around every day. But yeah, I loved it. Tournaments are like one of my favorite things.
How did you feel about the vlogging then?
I really enjoy video content. I think anytime I do like a guest lecture or kind of go visit my old school and they like bring them up, I hate them. First of all, I hate the Women's Euros ones in 2017 because I had this full fringe and it was like probably the worst thing I've ever met in my life. It was not the thing to go for, and it just didn't look great. And I just watch it every time, and I'm like, why did someone let me get my hair cut like that?
Do you know what? Me and Kieran would do anything to have a full fringe at this moment in time.
Why would you bring up my hairline right now?
I don't know. Just trying to make our guests feel better. That was all.
But it's always a little bit embarrassing, isn't it, to watch yourself back or listen to yourself back. And I'm definitely over that kind of phase now, but back at the time I was like, oh, I just hate watching myself and listening to myself. But I think they're great, especially at attracting a younger audience to the women's game as well, as the game continues to grow. So I think they're massively beneficial.
Yeah, I cannot stand hearing myself back. But you have to when you're doing the editing, like you said, till ridiculous times in the morning, and you're just constantly hearing your own voice again and again and again. You're just like, shut up. But it's part of it. So did any of the players remember you from the couple of years before when you did the Euros?
Yeah. A few of them did. Ellen White was great when I got to interview her again at the World Cup, and she also did like a guest appearance at the university as well, so she kind of knew a few of us quite well, and it's just kind of building up a rapport. Like I said, that's the only kind of great thing about women's football. You can build up much more of a rapport with the players and the coaches because they really take notice of you coming back time and time again to cover them. So it felt like just a really close-knit kind of tournament, if that makes sense, and that's just between the players and all the rest of the media and the fans and stuff. It just feels really homely when it comes to women's football to me. So it's kind of the area I've always definitely felt most comfortable in covering.
Is that where you think long term you'd like to cover more, or is it you just like to do a bit of both?
It's a really good question. At 24, I'm not rushing to make that decision yet, but you know, women's football comes most naturally to me. So it kind of would make the most sense, and I'm starting to write more about women's football for The Athletic. But it's nice to kind of have a finger in multiple pies at the same time, and get to meet different people and learn different things. So I really haven't rushed to think about an answer to that question, which I get asked semi-regularly. So I feel like I should have a better answer, but at the moment
it's not a bad answer, because I'm just going off of your response. Do you think you would potentially kind of get pigeonholed if you was to go more down the women's route, and then do you think it would be hard to come back into the men's game, or do you not think that would be an issue?
I think it's tricky to kind of definitely jump between multiple avenues. especially it depends, what company you're working for, or what area of journalism you're looking to change into or move out of. So I think it just depends on, what contacts do you have? Does the company you work for accommodate women's football and other avenues? So I think it's just dependent, but I'd like to think that because women's football is growing so much, it's not seen as like a completely separate element to the sport. So you should be able to go into it and out of it as freely as you like. Otherwise, why would you have some of the bigger journalists move in to help cover it when they then can't go back to their day-to-day work? It needs to be more fluid and more flexible for the bigger journalists to kind of come and have a look at what's going on in the game and go, actually, this is quite exciting and I want to help cover it more and build momentum and support around it. So I hope that it's still quite fluid, but I've had the chance to cover the men's game still at The Athletic and in previous jobs, while also having a main passion and love for women's football. So I personally haven't really felt any kind of hindrance in covering the women's game yet, but I've only been working for a big company for just over a year, so it might be the higher end you go, the worse it is, but I have no idea from personal experience.
All right, that's good. Who was your biggest inspirations to get into journalism when you were younger?
That's a really good question. I didn't know that I could be a female in sports journalism until I was 18 and in panic mode applying for universities and for degrees. I didn't want to go into general journalism, and I genuinely didn't even know sports journalism courses existed until I think my deadline was to December to apply, and this was like mid-October. I still had no idea what I wanted to do, and I stumbled across football journalism at the University of Derby and said, why not? I'll go for it and I'll apply, because it was going to be its first ever year, and it paid off. So before starting my degree, I didn't have big kind of people who inspired me, because like I said, I felt like even at my age, I didn't have many people to look up to. But, the big names in the game of Claire Balding and Gabby Logan have done an amazing job. Alex Scott now is really paving the way for being, a female in just football, which is great, because like I said, even when I was younger, there wasn't females solely in football. So it's difficult to have kind of that role model that I was like, yep, I want to be like them. So Gabby Logan and Claire Balding kind of put the idea in my head, but now you've got Laura Woods and Alex Scott, really paving the way for that.
Yeah, I think they're doing it in a different way. They've got a very sort of relevant style as well to the younger audience, which I think is making them succeed a lot.
Ollie, just one. Where did you don't? Kieran's already asked you where do you want this to go, but do you see yourself sort of being on television? Do you see it carrying on as doing writing? What you must know sort of either on one of those. I mean, for instance, I talk to a lot to Semiranta, who does the La Liga TV. I mean, she's been a great inspiration to a lot of young girls who want to get to the top, of journalism, broadcasting. Is that something you could see yourself doing?
It's another good question. I do really love the broadcast side of journalism, and I think it would be a very fun job, and I would definitely want to give it a go. I think the avenues for females who aren't an ex-player or something along those lines, it's a little bit of a longer process to get to. So it's definitely something that I would love to branch into, but kind of acknowledge that it's something that will take time. But like I said, being 24 and at an amazing company, I'm not in a rush to change career paths just yet, because I'm fortunate that The Athletic are allowing me to work in news and in general football and women's football and the podcasts. So it's great that it's a company that has a lot of different moving parts and a lot of different opportunities. But yeah, when I was studying, like, broadcast was always like the main goal. So I'd at some point like to achieve that, but there's no rush just yet.
No.
Do you think you would bring something different if you was to do the broadcasting side of things with your journalism background?
I think there's already so many great females that it would be hard to bring something different. But I think I am very energetic and I'm very willing to learn, and I feel like I'm pretty good in a team. So I think in terms of journalism and broadcasts, I think I just help bring a sense of togetherness on TV. I think the best TV is TV that you can relate to and people that you look at and go, they're just like me. And I think that I would definitely offer that, not being an ex-professional footballer or ex-professional coach. So I'd like to think that element would be kind of like my key selling point to future employers. But I always like kind of doubt myself as well, because luckily my Birmingham accent isn't massively thick, but it's sometimes the accent that's not favoured. It's not the accent that's favoured on live TV.
I wish I could change mine. And I know Kieran said about hearing yourself back. I mean, I hear myself back, and I'm like, oh dear, I've got to go to elocution lessons and try and change. Exactly,
Any old lines.
That's it.
I try and tone it down, but I can't.
No matter how you try, I just can't tone it. I still sound the same.
I think everyone has a bit of sort of some hookups on sort of whether it's whatever it is, their accent or whatever. But I think people just grow to like it or grow to like you as a personality. And once they've got you as a personality, I mean, it doesn't really matter how you sound, because you grow a fan base and then people pick you up. So yeah, just keep doing what you're doing. Not that I'm a professional and know what I'm talking about, pushing out advice.
It's appreciated nonetheless.
Have you got your notepad out, Holly?
I've got it next to
me. Back in the day when I was on the transfer exchange, so Kieran Stewart told me this.
So you said in your article for The Athletic that you had to separate your love of football to your passion in journalism. What did you mean by that?
Oh God, I can't even remember which piece that was in. Is that in the Juan Pablo Angel piece?
Yeah. It was.
Yeah. I think what I meant by that was, for those who are getting into journalism, and it's something that I definitely learned quite quickly, is you can have a love for football and then like maybe not as strong a love for journalism. And I think therefore it can be a little bit harder to stay committed to being a journalist and the industry. Whereas I think if your love for being a journalist is stronger than having a love for football, I think you're more likely to strive and do better in the industry, because regardless of, if the matches you are covering are frustrating or, your team is losing, I think you can push through because you have a better love for the industry rather than the sport. And I've been fairly open as time goes on that I used to have a very big love-hate relationship with football for various personal reasons, and it's something that I've finally started to love again and enjoy covering, while also just enjoying the industry in general.
Cool. So, because I was thinking maybe as a journalist and a football fan, you might have to separate the two in terms of so you're not having a sort of bias, but do you feel that you can still put your true feelings into your articles, or do you have to keep it a little bit more colder?
I think it's finding a balance between being biased and being passionate about the team that you're covering or the topic that you're covering. When I covered Villa a couple of weeks ago, I think because I support them and have a passion for them, I was able to write quite honestly about what went wrong for them in the defeat to Tottenham. But yeah, it's hard to not be biased and be like, oh, they've done all of this wrong, but actually they're still amazing, because it's hard to say that all the time, especially when it's a club like Villa, who's not, in the top four of the table. So yeah, I think I found a good way to not be biased. It's just about not being overly passionate so that it then comes across as biased.
But what about overly critical? Do you feel like you could easily do that to overcompensate?
I think it's finding a balance. I think I tend to be quite critical because I kind of have a little bit of like a coaching brain, and therefore it kind of comes through when critiquing things that have gone wrong or things that have gone right and things like that. So I think I've just about found the balance for that as well, but at times I feel like I can be quite harsh when I definitely feel like a certain way towards a team or a game or an issue that's being discussed.
Yeah. So you
Human
mentioned
nature. That's human nature, I
you
think.
mentioned that you've got a coaching brain. I noticed that you done your coaching badges. What level was that? And did you not want to carry on in the game doing that?
I think I just ended up becoming massively invested in journalism, which is the reason as to why I haven't carried that on. And coaching takes up a lot of time as well. So it was kind of one of those situations where I had to pick and choose what I kind of stuck with. But I've only done the first 2 coaching badges, the youth mod one and just the standard level one as well. But I think it's kind of changed its name since I last did it. And I did my first refereeing badge as well. And I thought it'd be like a great way to kind of learn more about football and see, football through different people's eyes. I definitely gave up quickly on refereeing because I got a lot of abuse from parents, which is a lot.
They're the worst.
Yeah.
Sunday league.
Yeah. And the worst game was a 9-a-side girls game, and a girl jumped up and the ball hit her hand, and it was going to go in because the keeper was not saving it, and like you have to give a penalty. She's denied a obvious goal scoring opportunity, and I remember her dad giving me dogs abuse, and I was like I am this isn't for me. Like I just don't want to deal with that. Like I can stand my ground, but it was just one of those where it's like, why do I want to put myself in that situation every weekend? So I gave that up quite quickly. But I admire referees who stick with it and do it, because I just wouldn't want to listen to people, especially when you know you're right and they're wrong. Like, I don't want to argue that all the time.
It doesn't get any better, because you're only going to do that in front of thousands of more people shouting at you and telling you that you're wrong when you know you're right.
What did you think of the performance of the woman referee when England played Andorra? Did you get to watch that? What did you think of it?
Yeah, I watched the game and I think they did a great job. The first official, I really liked how she stood her ground really quickly and kind of set the pace for the game. And it was nice to see as well that the players genuinely listened to her. So if she told them to move away or to come to her to book them or to talk to the captains, they did that straight away. My worry was maybe that they would have kind of defied that because she was a female and, it was her first, big game in the men's game as well. So, but I thought they all did a great job, and it was really refreshing to watch as well.
Yeah, I think Sian Macy's kind of set the bar there with female officials and how well she's done. Because I remember when she first came in her first game, people were trying to be overly critical of things that weren't even there, more critical than they would have been of the men's, definitely. But she's shown that she's a top official, and women are just as good as men at doing refereeing this.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
Let's move on to your interview with Gareth Southgate. How did you manage to get an interview with Gareth Southgate so early in your career?
Oh, honestly, it was one of the most terrifying experiences of my life. I was, I think, like 6 weeks into starting my university degree, and my lecturer knows Gareth Southgate, and at the time he was the interim manager.
So many connections.
I know, he's a great lecturer. He's amazing.
Have connections.
And Gareth agreed to come in. I think before he even became interim manager, he agreed to come in, and he stuck to it. And they just pulled 2 names out of the hat from the class as to who would interview Southgate when he came in. And I was like, oh, well, I'm not, there's 30 people in this hat. No, my name's not getting pulled. And it did. And, like I said, we barely started the degree. I'd never interviewed someone from the men's professional game before. And yeah, it was massively nerve-wracking. I think he's a great person, and I already looked up to him as the under-21s coach, previous Villa player as well. So yeah, I was very, very nervous, but he was amazing.
He's a nice guy, though.
As well. Yeah, and I've interviewed him once since part of the McDonald's Fun Football campaign. And I'm pretty sure he didn't remember me, and I do not blame him for that at all. But yeah, he was lovely then as well, and it was great. And I was just as nervous the second time around as I was the first time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, 100%.
It didn't help. The first interview didn't help.
No, it's really weird. Sometimes I will not feel nervous for some people. Other times I will feel really nervous. But yeah, I felt just as nervous the second time around. But that was also because it was a video for a publication. I was being paid to do that, so that was probably why. Like, it needed to be good and it needed to be correct. So I was nervous.
I think it's because you're just putting too much pressure on yourself and then thinking, does he even remember me? Does he remember me?
Yeah, 100%. And I'm very critical of myself as well, so I always get extra nervous.
Sometimes the person you're interviewing, that they're the ones that can make you nervous, or they can make you, comfortable. And when you're doing it, I've interviewed people on here, and you have, Kieran, where sometimes we're a little bit harder than others are, and I mean, they could certainly help when you're interviewing them. So I'm sure you'd be fine.
Yeah, I'm getting there.
What is your job as a junior editor at The Athletic entail then?
Junior news editor, I'm part of the news team, and we basically put headlines on the website and help manage those stories. So we kind of work with all of the writers at the company to kind of make sure that any story that is coming out or any potential story we have is correct, and we have all the information, and then we kind of help put it together with content from them and from us. And it's a lot of behind the scenes stuff, but it's very fun in terms of it's not necessarily our names that go onto those things. It tends to be obviously the writer involved with that club who's helped put this story together, but it's equally rewarding because you're getting to put some of the best news out there. And obviously I'd like to think that we're a company that is pretty good at also getting a lot of exclusive news as well. So being part of that process when it's exclusive news, it's one of the most thrilling and exciting parts of the job, hands down. Yeah,
I bet, definitely. No, that's cool. And you got this role from doing the article with Pablo Angel, Juan Pablo Angel, didn't you?
Basically, that's what I say. It was a mix of it was a mix of that and the fact that the Athletic are really proactive in trying to meet future journalists and people who are just coming into the industry. And they hosted an ID Day a couple of years ago, and it was a bit of a weird twist of fate. I came back to the UK for 3 weeks for my granddad's funeral, and so flew back from New Zealand, and during those 3 weeks went to this ID Day with no expectation, just wanted to see what the company was about because I had been reading their stuff for quite some time already, and went back to New Zealand, got offered a job extension in New Zealand, and then Alex Kajalski messaged me on Twitter and was like, we are creating a news team, we'd really like you to apply. So I applied, did my interview from New Zealand, did my training from New Zealand, and then flew back and started my job 2 weeks later. So it was crazy, like the craziest thing ever. Yeah, and during lockdown, I had done an interview with Juan Pablo Angel with Greg Evans, the Villa writer, and kind of that definitely put me in the good books. It had to have done. It was Juan Pablo Angel, so I think it definitely helped as well with getting the job.
All right, that's cool. So, how did the interview go with Juan Pablo Angel? Did you know much about him obviously you're a Villa fan, yeah?
Yeah.
So, how much did you know about Juan Pablo Angel before you did the interview?
I knew him pretty well for two reasons. One, he was one of the first Villa players that I started watching on YouTube when I started getting into Villa and becoming more of a fan. You know, a lot of fans will go and watch old clips and things like that. So I was doing that, watching Juan Pablo Angel and various other players. But the reason I had managed to set up the interview for The Athletic was because for my previous job in New Zealand, we had Juan Pablo Angel come and open a new artificial turf at my work, part of the FIFA Legends program. So I looked after him for 5 days while he was in New Zealand, and got to know him obviously very well because I, took him to breakfast, lunch, dinner, took him around the event, and interviewed him during a charity event that we did as well. So built a very good rapport with him, and he was more than happy for me to stay in touch with him. So when Greg Evans tweeted during lockdown, if any young journalists have ideas for stories, get in touch, I just messaged him, was like, I'm pretty sure I can get you an exclusive interview with Juan Pablo Angel if that's something of interest for you.
Yeah.
Like I went in guns blazing. Yeah, I went in guns blazing.
Yes.
Juan Pablo Angel, I've got it. It's in the book. And Greg said, great. Yeah, so it was a three-way call for me in New Zealand, Greg in England, and Juan Pablo Angel in Colombia, and it was amazing.
That's quality. Oh, what a story! Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. So now we've moved on to Aston Villa, which is good. This is good.
Fun time.
Yeah. Did you think that Aston Villa would do so well after the loss? It sounds like someone's died after losing Jack Grealish.
I don't know whether I should admit this, but I'm a Villa fan who was sad that Grealish was leaving, but also happy that he was, progressing his career. So I felt confident that we would be able to adjust. I just wasn't sure how long that would take. And I feel fairly confident in saying that I feel like we have settled already and have shown that we are capable. I think if Leon Bailey was fully fit, I think it would also be an even different story. I think we'd be doing even better. His 21 minutes already this season, even though he had to then come off again injured, were unbelievable. And I think every Villa fan is anxiously waiting for his return. So I think we are fine without Jack Grealish. I think a lot of Villa fans are like a little bit like, forget him, who was he, kind of thing now that he's gone. And a few 100%, yeah, 100%. And then a few City fans are like, we want our money back because he's, in their mind, not doing as great as they had hoped he would. And a lot of Villa fans are saying, no, we've got that 100 mil, like, you've got Grealish kind of thing. So there is kind of like that little bit of like tension between Villa fans and City fans now. But I think it's just Grealish is in a team now that isn't suited to just him. And it's a lot of bigger names, whereas Villa, it was all about him. He was the biggest name. So he was always going to look amazing anytime Villa did anything good. Whereas now, they've got Kevin De Bruyne, Raheem Sterling, Ferran Torres as the reason as to why City are doing good stuff, as well as Jack Grealish. So to answer your original question, I think Villa are doing, I'm happy with where Villa are at the moment without Jack Grealish. And I think it will continue to progress.
I was just about to say, do you think they relied on him a bit too much and now they can sort of play more as a team now that he's not there?
Yeah, I think if Villa weren't doing so well, I would have said, 100% they relied on him too much and they didn't kind of create a contingency plan. And that was shown a little bit when he was obviously out injured. We struggled a few times to get decent results when we should have been winning those games. But the fact that he's gone and we're doing okay, I think it shows that actually Dean Smith played up to Grealish's strengths because he was the best player on the pitch and that helped us win games. But Dean Smith is a good enough coach that he's managed to make the team adapt without Grealish. And I think that kind of shows that it wasn't always just about him. It was just using his strengths, which was so effective in helping Villa win games.
Yeah, I think you've probably seen it, but with Jack Grealish said about when Dean Smith and him first met, and I think Tottenham tried to buy him, and he said, "What, Tottenham tried to buy you 30 mil? What, 1 goal, 1 assist? You need to be doing better there." That just shows that he appreciates the good player, but he's also willing to sort of test him as well. And I think that's what Jack Grealish needs. So on to Dean Smith. Do you think he gets the credit that he actually deserves? Because I don't. Do you think he gets the credit he deserves?
I think outside of Villa, I think he's still quite an underrated manager to the average Premier League football fan. But obviously yesterday was 3 years since he joined the club. And a lot of Villa fans, surprisingly, have been very positive on social media and very supportive of the fact that the club went from mid-championship all the way up to contending for a European spot in 3 years is a massive achievement. And especially in that first 12 months, his budget wasn't massive. Granted, yes, a big budget now has definitely helped. But it also means you have to be a good enough manager to use that budget correctly and bring in the right players and get them all to click. So I think from an outside point of view, he's underrated, whereas I think a lot of Villa fans now are starting to kind of listen to each other and go, actually, what he's done for this club is monumental. And I think he is underrated more outside of Villa than he is inside of Villa. But it's he definitely deserves more recognition than what he currently has.
Yeah, the reason why I say that is because Aston Villa play very good football, and someone down the road at Leeds, Marcelo Bielsa, who's very well renowned globally throughout the years, has been a manager, gets so much credit for the way his team play football as well. But Aston Villa only finished 4 points behind Leeds last season, and they're currently above Leeds right now. They've lost their best player, and they're still doing well. So that's why I was thinking that he doesn't quite get the credit that he does deserve, and maybe it is more from the outside of view rather than Villa fans themselves. So
yeah, 100%. And I think if you also listen to what the pundits are saying and the commentary people are saying on when Villa are on TV, a lot of them have a lot of respect for Dean Smith and what he's done with the club, and that's because they understand that the task he had at the time and over the last 3 years is no easy feat. So I think the fact that those people are saying it, and even though it's not quite transpiring through to the fans, I think that shows that he gets respect in the right places, just not to a big scale and to a broad scale. I think a lot of clubs in the Premier League should be happy that if they were to get Dean Smith, that they should feel confident that he'd be able to turn them around, because the kind of ethos around the club and the mentality within the club has shifted so much. And I'm lucky enough that I know people within the club and you know, being a fan, but I've seen that real change from it being such a negative fan base and kind of negative atmosphere around the club to now, you know, the men's team being so unified, and a lot of the players say constantly how much fun they have being there. And when players retire or leave the club, they have so much respect for the club and what they've done for them, that I think it shows that mentality that Dean Smith brings to a club is so important to success, and I think that's very underrated.
So what you think Dean Smith has brought it, and he's changed the sort of mentality around the club and with the fans as well?
Yeah, 100%. I think that the players, I've never seen a group of players play for Villa and be more unified and support each other. And, you know, maybe that's also because he has some really great characters in the team through, you know, Tyrone Mings and John McGinn, for example. But I think it's also just the fact that he wants such a hard-working team. And if he has that from them, then he's not going to complain in terms of anything else. Yes, he'll want the results. Yes, he'll want the team to do well. But for him, he just wants to see them do what is asked of them and put in a high-level performance. So I think Dean Smith has definitely changed the way that the club view things. And, you know, one loss, it's not the be-all and end-all. It's right, we'll learn from this. And I think if you look, I don't remember a time within the last 12 months where something's gone wrong and it's continued to go wrong in the same way. Dean Smith has learned and adapted and changed. And I think that's what you want from the manager at the very least.
100%, because he's still a young manager. He's still learning his trade himself. Yeah, I remember when he was playing for Leyton Orient back in the day. So, and I think he was captain of that team. So he's always been a leader. How far do you think he can take you?
I think it would depend a little bit on the results of the other teams, and this might be too optimistic, but I think we could sneak Europa League, and not Europa League, sorry, European Conference. Mm-hmm. But that, like I said, that also depends very much on other results from other teams towards the end of the season. But I think that will be his goal as well, to get European football, to get Villa back on European football. But I think anything higher than the previous season is kind of what Villa fans want, what Dean Smith will want, and what everyone's kind of hoping for. So when I say it out loud, it feels like it's quite unrealistic, but I do think it's possible. Like I said, I think the only thing is, I think like Leon Bailey's return, and hopefully he doesn't keep picking up injuries, will also be very important to Villa's success, because like I said, he's an amazing player, and you know, I think his flair and his the way he plays football with so much kind of like drive and enthusiasm will like put a lot of teams under pressure. I think if we had him in the Spurs game, it would have been a completely different situation.
Yeah, I think Leon Bailey's going to pick up injuries up and down this season. It's just acclimatising to the Premier League. It's different league, it's different pace, and if you're trying to do what he does with his intensity, he's not going to be able to do it. He's going to want to do it. He's not going to be able to do it for the full 90 for a long run of games. So it's just about being patient with him. And I'd probably say more next year will probably be his year if he can continue the way he's going. What's I going to say? Who are you excited from the youth team to come through? Because I noticed that Dean Smith's is good at bringing the youth team players through as well.
Yeah, I think that's a really exciting thing. In fact, that I think Villa probably are bringing through more youth players than any other Premier League team, or definitely at the top level of bringing youth players through. I think Jacob Ramsey is definitely already established, so I think it would be unfair to say him. I think it has to be between Archer and I'm always awful at pronouncing his name, but Carney Chukwuemeka. Yeah, I'm awful at pronouncing his surname, but those two kind of stand out to me at the moment of kind of being almost there and could potentially break in. If I'm kind of a little bit frustrated that we're already knocked out of the cup, because I feel like the cup could have been a really great time for them to kind of find their feet and kind of play high-paced football against some of the big dogs. But those two are kind of the ones that stand out to me at the moment.
And Aston Villa brought his brother in as well, haven't they? Is it Caleb Chukwuemeka?
Yes, and he's been doing really well for the under-23s as well.
Yeah.
So at this rate, we'll be able to field a starting 11 based out just of youth players, because youth players are just ridiculously good at the moment.
Yeah, I was going to say, like you said, you must be frustrated with being out of the cup, but if you could potentially push into Europe, some of them games in the early stages of Europe, I mean, it's not even full-time footballers playing in that level. So it would definitely be a game where you can give some of them youngsters some European experience for sure.
Yeah, definitely.
Steve? Sorry, I was on mute. Nope. I thought you were saying something. All right.
No, I did. A couple of times I did, but you must have been on mute.
Sorry.
She put me on mute.
All right. Holly, that is all I have time for. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Really appreciate you giving our time.
Yeah, pleasure having you, Holly. Thanks for coming on.
All right.
No, I really enjoyed myself.
If you wanna find Holly, you can get her Twitter handle we'll put it in the description. But Holly, do you want to tell everyone where they can find you and anything like that?
Yes, Twitter is kind of my main platform, and my @ is Holly with 2 Y's _Percival. Give me a follow if you're a Villa fan. If you're not, I post about any much football news. Anyway. So if you're interested in that, it's worth a follow.
And you're on Twitch as well. You're a gamer.
I do stream in my free time. I'm a very big video game nerd, and so I try and do that in my free time. So my Twitch is a really original name. It's Holly Plays with 2 Y's in each thing. So a really original name, basically.
And what's your game? What games do you play?
I am definitely a variety streamer. I cycle through a lot of games, mostly FPS and Rocket League. They tend to be my go-to games.
I tried Rocket League. I'm rubbish. I'm absolutely rubbish.
It definitely takes practice.
It's so hard. I'm trying to follow the ball. I completely miss it, and I'm just like, no, I can't play this.
It's hard. It's not a kid's game. That's for sure.
I'm glad you've boosted my ego there by saying it's not a kid's game. It's an adult's game. Now I don't feel stupid. All right. Make sure you go and follow Holly, people. Most definitely. I'm sure she's open to questions at any point. Hit us up in the comment section. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. Thank you for joining us tonight, people. Peace out. Stay safe and wash your hands.